This is the Director's Report presented by Raymond Perrier at the annual Stakeholders Meeting in Durban in February 2018. Each year I review the work of the Dennis Hurley Centre, but it's obviously a lot more interesting not to look just at what we've done, but how we've done it and why we do it. In 2016, Pope Francis declared a year of mercy, and so we looked at our activities in terms of the corporal works of mercy, as listed in Matthew 25, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, comforting the sick. Last year, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of Populorum Progressio, the visionary document written by Blessed Paul VI about the Church's role in development. And so we looked at the work of the Dennis Hurley Centre through the lens of that document. This year in 2018, we are in particular remembering the late Bishop Barry Wood, and later we're announcing an award in his honour, which will be given to a staff member and a volunteer who exemplify the values of Archbishop Hurley and of the Dennis Hurley Centre. And so let's look at our work in terms of what our values are and how our work reflects and builds on those values. If you look at our website or at the employee handbook, you will see these 9 listed as the values of the Dennis Hurley Centre. What I want to do is go through each one in turn, reflecting on them and looking at them in the context of our work. The first one is to go the extra mile, a commitment to going beyond what's just possible to what really needs to be done, and for individuals to look beyond the specific terms of his or her role, even if that means some element of personal sacrifice. Dennis Hurley himself clearly embodied the willingness to undertake some personal sacrifice, significant personal sacrifice, in order to help others. A very simple example of that is the fact that we carried on feeding right the way through the Christmas holidays, and indeed we do so on any public holiday, which would be one of our normal feeding days. Here's a picture of the group that gathered to feed the poor on Christmas Eve, and we were helped enormously by some members of the Union of Jewish Women who came along to help, one of the benefits of our interfaith collaboration. But at the Nkosinati project at Dennis Hurley Centre, it's not just Christmas Eve when we go the extra mile, but in fact every day. We're serving food 5 days a week throughout the year. On average last year, that means we were serving 330 meals each day, up 5% from 2016. A total of 41,000 breakfasts and 46,000 cooked lunches, all of them made from fresh ingredients. We also provided showers, 7,600 to men and 4,200 for women. As you see, a significant increase in the number of showers as the city is clamping down on the ability of poor people to use the public showers at the beach. We also distributed clothes to almost 1,600 people. And the vast majority of that work was done by volunteers. In fact, if you added up over 2,000 volunteering sessions, 30% of them done by the homeless. If we were paying for that at the very moderate rate of 20 rand an hour, that would be the equivalent of almost 130,000 rand of free manpower. Another example of going the extra mile is the annual Sleep Out event that we organise each year with iCare, the organisation that specialises in working with street children. It's called Dare to Share, and this year we dared people to share food, to share music, to share company, and if they were really daring, to share a hard night on the pavement outside our building. The Dalton Creche is another example. Dalton is the area where we've been providing healthcare to poor people, particularly drug users living on the streets and in the mud. And we found that in that environment there were also a number of children who were just playing around in the mud until they were old enough to go to school. It was going the extra mile to put together a package so that we could offer a creche, a preschool for them, and give those children a decent start in life. And here is Charity, the teacher at the creche, with some of the young people who were completing last year and so moving on to primary school this year. And we literally went the extra mile in 2017 on 2 occasions by organising a 2-day pilgrimage to sites around the Pietermaritzburg area and the Durban area associated with Dennis Hurley. Here's a picture of the group down at the Umkomas lighthouse on the south coast, the last lighthouse where Dennis Hurley's father acted as lighthouse keeper and which cemented Hurley's relationship with Durban. collaboration and partnership as a second value, and we see that not just as collaboration within the organisation, between departments and between staff and volunteers, but also with partner organisations. A key partner for us, of course, is eThekwini Municipality, and there are some good examples of where that partnership has worked. The exhibition about Hurley's life and work, which was opened a year ago at last year's AGM, is a great example of collaboration with the local History Museums Department in designing and completing the exhibition. And another example of collaboration with eThekwini is that the Department of Health, as of 2017, have been giving us medicines every month, a total value across the year of 330,000 rand, and that's about 57% of our medicine needs last year. The municipality have already been supporting us and partnering with us in terms of our work in HIV. And you can see how important that is from this graph, which shows the percentage of people whom we test who are reacting positive, between 25 and 30% most months. The Department of Health help us with the testing equipment and also ensure that people whom we test positive are then able to access antiretroviral medication through local government clinics. The opening of the new clinic out at Dalton was a very good example of partnership in a number of directions, not just with the municipality and different departments of the municipality, but also working with corporate organizations, specifically Container World, who donated and converted the container, with other NGOs, and also with the School of Medicine, who are just down the road and whose medical students come and help out at the clinic. It's a great example of when partnership works, but also shows that sometimes partnership doesn't all come together. The municipality prepared the land and organized the security, but sadly, almost 6 months after we opened it, we still don't have access to running water or to electricity as we had been promised by the municipality. So it means that some of our hopes for municipal collaboration have been fulfilled, but some have not. And the little checklist gives us some idea of where we've done well. Success in terms of the provision of medicines, a more integrated approach to drug rehab, for example, support of the methadone or OST program, and acting as a pickup site for ARV medications. We now have a separate NGO that operates at the Dennis Hurley Centre and which distributes antiretrovirals to people who are HIV positive and stable in their use of medication, speeding up the process by which they can access them. As I mentioned, in terms of opening the clinic, some collaboration, but not quite everything that we need yet. And similarly, a mixed bunch in terms of developing the area around the Dennis Hurley Centre as an urban improvement precinct, or addressing issues of bad policing and bad police. But sadly, still no progress in the promised dynamic management of the mall outside. The tables were installed and immediately stolen, and still nothing has happened. Also, the proposal to have better regulation and supervision of shelters, or simply to provide some basic services to the homeless, as identified in the municipality's own survey almost 2 years ago. So overall, if the plan of the municipality, its vision is to be the most caring and livable city in Africa, we have to say that that's still very much work in progress. Other examples of collaboration and partnership include the number of partners working with our sewing project, and they're now independent as of this year, thanks to the relationship they have with the DUT School of Fashion, with the mosque building next door, who give them accommodation for free, and also with the Divine Life Society, that's always been helpful in donating machines and expertise. And our paper money project, turning street beggars into newspaper vendors, was only possible because of collaboration, specifically with Urban Lime, the property company that sponsored the pilot program, and independent newspapers, who of course are the source of the Mercury and the Daily News, and who've worked closely not just in enabling the logistics of the program, but also promoting it to their readers. More recently, other corporates like Johnson Workwear and Sotobi Advertising have become involved. A great example of what can be done when people work together. In fact, if you look at our list of partners, it's really quite extraordinary. Faith partners, arts partners, government partners, NGOs, media organizations, educational partners, corporate partners, and overseas partners. One interesting example is that we've always had Catholic schools, the number of Catholic schools in Durban, as partners. This last year, for the first time, we had non-Catholic schools like Durban High School and Crawford and Clifton working with us as well. A big thank you to all the partners who work with us and for their willingness to explore ideas with us, to test new concepts, and to give feedback when things don't go well. Reaching out to the excluded, of course, is core to who we are as an organisation, a very important value, that we are welcoming those who might not otherwise feel welcome. Our work at Dalton is a very good example of that. The people who were living at Dalton, after all, were there because they were moved out of the city by the municipality, drug users who were just ejected from Albert Park and dumped in this very horrible, nasty area near the port. But they are a resilient community and they have their own resources. Here is Tracy Leonard, a member of that community, who took an area of ground near our container and has turned it into a vegetable garden. And it shows quite literally that new life can grow where otherwise there is neglect and violence, by reaching out to people and seeing the best in them. If you review the work of the clinic, you can see how much of our work is with people who are excluded. The proportion of people we see who are Wunga users, the proportion who are refugees, and indeed the homeless proportion overall. Working with drug users continues to be a big theme of our work and also is the focus of our baby sister, if you like, the Napier Centre for Healing, that we have been helping Father Stephen Tully and the Cardinal put together and develop, and we're very much hoping that in a few months' time, funds permitting, the first residents will move into the site, which is an old Catholic boarding school just outside Verulam, and will work as a fully professional drug rehabilitation and reintegration centre for drug users who are living on the street. And the work in drugs is not just with drug users, but with people who are influential to help them to talk about drugs and help them to talk about addiction. So we were delighted to partner with the Jesuit Institute last year, whose annual Winter Living Theology program focused on addiction and focused on the role that the church can play and church leaders can play in reaching out to people and especially families affected by addiction. Reaching out to the excluded, such as refugees, is something that we do every day. But here's an example of a specific activity on World Refugee Day, a wonderful concert held outside the building, welcoming all people, not just foreign nationals, but welcoming all so that they work and live and play together. And that's an example of the wider value of offering equal respect for all, regardless of nationality, race, religion, gender, disability, or sexual orientation, as it says in our employee handbook. That's clearly always been a key value in terms of religious outreach. A new innovation this year was the hosting of an iftar during Ramadan, a breaking of the fast. And where else in the world would you find a room in which an Indian Catholic sister, a Muslim Zulu, and an Israeli were breaking the Ramadan fast together as they are here? Another example of helping people to show equal respect to all is through the work of our drama collaborator, Neil Coppen. He worked with researcher Kira Irwin from the Durban University of Technology Urban Futures Centre to create a play called The Last Country, which helped people to think about the lives of migrant women in Durban, some of them refugees from Congo, Somalia, and Zimbabwe, but also a woman from rural KZN who's moved into the city, to help people to have respect for those women in the city by understanding what their lives are like. And a new development is to reach out to people with disabilities and integrate them into our staff teams. We now have a number of people with disabilities working regularly at the centre, and if you look at this photo and you wonder, well, who are the people with disabilities? It's intentional that that's not clear, because once people are integrated, we hope that they're no longer seen as somebody with a disability, but somebody with a name and a personality and hopes and dreams like everyone else. We already have people with learning disabilities and people with cerebral palsy working in the building. We now have a new tour guide, a blind tour guide, who works full-time at the centre. And in a few months' time, we'll be developing our cafe area so it can become a training school for deaf young adults, continuing the link we already have with Quatintwa School for the Deaf, and here are two young people from that school who've helped us out in the past. Challenging injustice is something that Hurley did throughout his life, and of course Bishop Barry also did in his leadership of the justice and peace movement across the whole country, challenging injustice and corruption. The regular exposure we have to the press, such as columns in the Mercury and the Southern Cross, radio interviews, and so on, gives us a chance to be a voice for the voiceless, sometimes gently, sometimes less so. And all of those columns are available to be viewed online. We work now closely with the Legal Resource Centre, an organisation that for many years has been challenging injustice. And they host a drop-in clinic at the Dennis Hurley Centre once a month for anyone who has a legal problem. This photograph is from the Hurley pilgrimage last year, where we were at Courtroom C in the Supreme Court in Durban, the scene of a famous court case which involved the Legal Resource Centre, known as the Paddy Carney or the Hurley case, where the principle of detaining somebody without just cause was challenged and successfully challenged by Hurley, enabling Paddy Carney to be released, but also preventing other people from being detained. The lawyer involved at the time was the young Chris Nicholson, who is now a High Court judge and indeed is sitting in the judge's chair. Standing in front of him, Privin Vadan, is the current head of the Legal Resource Centre. So across two generations, Legal Resource Centre showing their ability to challenge injustice in the city and work with the Dennis Hurley Centre. We're trying to take that now to a higher level by looking at national opportunities to challenge injustice. And last year, we were involved in participating for the first time in a national conversation about responses to homelessness. Bringing representatives from different municipalities across the city, we gathered in Pretoria, not just people from NGOs, but also from universities and rights organizations, some government departments, though perhaps not as many as we would like, and indeed some homeless people as well. But challenging injustice doesn't always have to be worthy and dull. It can also be great fun. And we were thrilled that the actor Peter Dirk Ace worked with us to provide free tickets to an Evita Bezuidenhout concert. Evita, of course, has been challenging injustice and mocking those who are unjust and corrupt for many, many decades. And it was great fun to spend an evening with Evita. And you see her here wearing a dress which actually incorporates Dennis Hurley Shweshwe. And one of the quiet ways we challenge injustice is through the many school groups who come through to the Dennis Hurley Centre to volunteer. They're often young people from private schools who will go on to become leaders in the country in the future. So here is a chance to sow seeds in their mind at an early age. The importance of volunteering, the importance of reaching out to the poor, but the importance also of hearing stories about how the poor are affected and how they are treated unjustly. So when the young people come from different schools, they hear about, for example, how the city treats poor people, how they pick them up and drop them off outside the city when there are big conferences on, as a way of clearing the streets, as they call it, effectively kidnapping people so that they won't embarrass the city, rather than actually doing something to solve the long-term problem. Everything we do, we hope we do to a professional standard, to high standards, and that should be true because we believe the poor are no less deserving of quality than the wealthy. We hope that's true in terms of our marketing and fundraising activities. And we now have a database for email communication with over 7,500 names of people who've expressed an interest in the work of the Dennis Hurley Centre. And this last year, we were also improving our use of Facebook. And if you don't yet follow us on Facebook, then please like our page and you'll get regular updates on what we're doing, as well as our monthly update. Professional and high standards are things we challenge not only in our own staff, but in people who come to work with us. Each year we get interns, social work students in their fourth year who come to work at the Dennis Hurley Centre. And many of them tell us they're surprised at how high a standard we set compared to some of the other NGOs or government departments where they work. But they also appreciate that if we set them a high standard, we help them to achieve that, and that they discover how much more they can do when they set themselves a high standard and they respond. And we hope that our professionalism isn't just in what we demand of people who work with us, but also how we can give back to them. And we were delighted, for example, on Mandela Day that we were able to do something really nice for the staff and volunteers for whom Mandela Day, of course, is every day of the year. Every day they're serving the poor. And so a local beauty salon, Sorbet from Durban North, came in and offered manicures and facials and pedicures to our regular staff and volunteers. Professionalism is key in our marketing and fundraising efforts. We saw that around Christmas 2016 with the Social Meal Project, where we were challenging people eating at restaurants in Durban across the holiday season to make a donation to help fund feeding for the homeless. It was so successful that this last Christmas, Afro's Chicken Shop, one of Durban's hottest new food chains, took it on as their specific Christmas campaign. And here you see two of our models, Vusi and Lewis. You can see them in the restaurant flyers enjoying Afro's chicken down on Florida Road. Our new fundraising campaign is focusing on the clinic and the heroes who do great work there day in and day out. Again, a very professional campaign which is being rolled out not just in South Africa but also in the UK, challenging people to make a donation when they see how efficient we are with the money that they give us. For each poor person we see in the clinic, refugees and homeless people, it costs us only 60 Rand or $4 for all the services that we provide for them. We're bringing people together in our work, and that's an active desire, not just something passive, but we go out of our way to find ways to bring people together across. A good example of that was helping to organize the event that was hosted at Emmanuel Cathedral to mark the 500th anniversary of the start of the Lutheran Reformation. Cardinal Napier, seen here with the former worldwide head of the Lutheran Federation and local church leaders from across different denominations. Durban is a city known for its tolerance, and it was a chance to show that in how we can mark together an event in the history of the church which was so significant. Notice that on the cathedra, the seat of authority in the cathedral, it is neither the cardinal nor a bishop, who is sitting there, but actually the book of the Gospels that's enshrined. Our regular school concerts with both junior and senior choirs are a chance for the young people not only to sing together, but as they spend time together, to learn how to be together. Too often our young people are isolated in the schools in which they attend and know little about the lives of people who attend different kinds of schools. And in the case of the schools concerts, it's not just children from different schools, from rich and poor schools, but also bringing in young people from the School for the Deaf as well. And we help people not just to enjoy music together, but to make music together through the Akuza weekend classes in dance and guitar and voice that take place every Friday and Saturday. And our plan in 2018 is to use music even more to bring people together, taking advantage of the space between the Dennis Hurley Centre and the Cathedral to have pop-up concerts that will bring people together to enjoy the music. Here's a great example of the concert we had on Freedom Day, where the Durban Gospel Choir entertained an audience mixed of suburbanites and homeless people and local people who were in the area shopping. Accountability and transparency is important because we can't do any of this work without funds and assets, and we need to be transparent in how we report on those and how we are accountable for them. I believe that we have excellent management systems in place. We have a highly experienced and competent finance manager, and as of 2017, we've had a part-time administrator working as backup to him and to me and the other managers. Every month, the management committee of the organization meets, and also the finance committee to review the accounts against the budget. And every 2 months, there's a meeting of the trustees with reports by the director and the treasurer to review budget and also oversee long-term strategy. Just looking at our numbers in the spirit of accountability, it shows that between 2016 and 2017, our spend went up from 4.1 million to 4.6 million Rand. And you can see that the sources of income are very varied indeed. Emmanuel Cathedral, a significant source, about 5% of the total, but you see also other faith groups, the different fundraising activities, the Centenary Club, individuals and organizations within South Africa, but also overseas individuals and organizations, and money from hiring out the venues and also good use of our investments for interest. The amount shown there for government was not cash, but the equivalent of the medicines that were donated from the Department of Health for our clinic. And our money is spent across a wide variety of sources, principally staffing, of course, just over 50%, as you would expect, but also supplies and cleaning and communications and so on and so forth. A large amount goes back into reserves, and that's important because it makes sure that we are provided for a rainy day in case there should be a crisis of any sort in the future. Going forwards, we expect in 2018 to increase that now to about 5 million, and that means about 14,000 Rand a day, or just over $1,000 a day, that we need to raise. The clinic and the creche are the single largest focus for that spend because so many of the staff there are professional staff, whereas in Kosinati, the feeding area relies heavily on donations and volunteers, which is why the spend there is much less, even though the work is significant. And you'll see the area of livelihoods begins to increase as that becomes a more important part of what we do. And finally, the last value is how we value individuals. I think it's really significant that though we see large numbers of people, each one of them is treated as an individual and given the respect they deserve. That was very clear when we organized the street store with Grace Family Church in the middle of the year. Over 1,000 people attended and received second-hand clothes, but each one of them was greeted by a personal shopper, was allowed to choose their clothes with great dignity, then given the chance to have a manicure or a haircut or a facial, and then given lunch before they went on their way. Not a free-for-all, not a jumble sale, but instead an experience of dignity and self-respect. Another example of that was the Danish optician who appeared from nowhere and came and dispensed glasses to 400 people over 3 days, personally examining each individual to make sure that they got the right prescription and dispensing glasses to each one. And in fact, that's true in our clinic day in and day out. We saw almost 20,000 patients at the Dennis Hurley Centre Clinic and another 10,000 on the streets. But each one of those people received careful, personalized, individual care. Greeted here, for example, at the reception by Aisha, our clinic receptionist. So when you look at the numbers for the clinic, and this is an average of how many people we saw each day of each month over the 3 years, you can see how the numbers have gone up. There is some cyclicality during the seasons, but each one of those people, in some days, over 100, 120, 140 people seen, each one treated as an individual and given the respect they deserve. And so we're conscious that the age ranges of the people we see require us to treat them very differently. Treating a child versus an adolescent versus an old person means that we need to understand their specific needs, their personal needs. Another way of valuing individuals is to honor specific people who have helped us in the organization. And we were delighted this year to honor somebody whose contribution to the Dennis Hurley Centre has been second to none, Monsignor Paul Nadal, who was Hurley's Vicar General. He has been a patron, he is a patron of the Dennis Hurley Centre, a trustee, and has also been a key fundraiser. And this year we named the garden terrace on the top floor after Paul Nadal. And you see him here with some of his friends and the women who helped design and set up the terrace. There are 2 other women who've been great supporters of the Dennis Hurley Centre, no longer actively involved, but we really want to thank them. Mary Ann Carpenter, who has been running our clinic for the last 3 years, has moved on to new projects. And Paddy Meskin from the Jewish community, seen here hosting a Passover Seder at the Dennis Hurley Centre a few years ago, is sadly very sick and so no longer actively involved. And we're very grateful to the 2 of them for all that they have done and how they have inspired our work. And also want to remember 2 men who have in different ways helped launch the Dennis Hurley Centre and now gone to the Lord. Bishop Barry Wood, I mentioned earlier, Auxiliary Bishop of Durban, and like Hurley, an oblate, a member of the Oblates of Mary Immaculate, and a man absolutely passionate about fighting for justice, who died very suddenly earlier in 2017. and also Temi Ventouras, the great Durban theatre maker, producer and director, who created the centenary concert that launched our centre and sadly died very suddenly of cancer in the last year. Bishop Barry Wood's name is being honoured at the Dennis Hurley Centre by the creation of the Bishop Barry Wood Award. And at the AGM, we were able to present that award for outstanding service to Tracy Bolt, the cook in our Nkosinati kitchen, and to our two oldest volunteers, Phyllis Allen, known to everyone as Auntie Gurley on the left, and Auntie Eleanor on the right, who were the joint winners of the Volunteers Award. It was a really wonderful opportunity to honour them and the service that they have given and the way in which they inspire others to go the extra mile, to value each individual, to show equal respect, and all the other values that I've been talking about. So where are we now? Well, if 2015 was the year of settling into the building, it was also a chance to professionalise the clinic and to establish systems so that we could grow. 2016 was a chance to expand Nkosinati, the feeding scheme, from 3 days to 4 days to 5, in particular with the collaboration of the Muslim community and different Catholic organisations. And we also developed more and more partnerships with different NGOs and also with artists. In 2017, there was a massive increase in the clinic outreach work, including the creation of our satellite clinic at Dalton. We piloted our economic empowerment work, for example, the Paper Money Project, and began to explore a national advocacy network. Now, in 2018, our focus is on disability, empowering and integrating people with disabilities within the work of the Dennis Hurley Centre, consolidating our clinic funding so that we can continue to offer as much work as we do, expanding our economic empowerment programs, and also the opening of the Napier Centre for Healing so that we can provide a fully integrated service to drug users who are living on the street. None of that is possible without the support of people like you who are listening to this presentation, those who help us as regular donors, those who give us access to funds, those who support us as volunteers, those who donate goods that are useful to us, and of course, those who pray for us and support us in other ways. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for all you do to help us to help the poor in Durban. God bless.